There's more to Listen Up than what you see on TV. Check out our website. You'll find blogs to comment on, questions to answer, polls to take, clips to watch, and you can find us on Facebook and Twitter. Pay us a visit and tell us what you think. Caring about kids in care. Whose responsibility is it? Write to us at listenuptv.com. Welcome back. In his report on the 90 child deaths, Ontario's Chief Advocate for Children and Youth wrote, "We all have a responsibility for the well-being of children in our society, and we need to know where the breakdowns are occurring so we can act in ways to protect children." We go to two of Canada's largest centres for children at risk, Toronto's Yonge Street Mission and Toronto's Sick Kids Hospital, for insights on improving family health. So Rick, more kids in need than we expected, more controversy around it. How should we be responding?
We obviously need to do the sort of investigations that are being called for. Not because I actually think that things are as bad as we may be suggesting, but given that we have 26,000 children plus in the care of Children's Aid and another 175,000 in association with Children's Aid, that's an awful lot of youth at some measure of risk in our society. We have to move beyond that and ask, how do we get, as a province, to have 200,000, in quotes, at-risk children? That requires some careful study and some careful review, because that really speaks to a much bigger issue than what happened to 90 particular children.
The crisis is so significant that here at one of Canada's largest hospitals, a blue ribbon panel has been struck to say what can be done to address the needs in the child welfare system.
Well, I think one of the things that we have to also understand in this crisis, and it is a crisis, 90 kids is a lot of kids to see in a report like that, is that for many of these kids, the trauma begins when they're very, very young, sometimes, you know, when they're babies. And the system is not always great at responding to infants and toddlers.
Dr. Chaya Kilcarney is passionate about educating parents that there is help out there.
We need to start admitting, first of all, that parenting is hard. And quite often, you know, whether you're opening up a magazine or watching a show on TV, it all looks so easy and so perfect. And so for a lot of parents, you know, when things don't work out perfectly for them, people are almost reluctant to call out for help.
So I'm a parent who's overstressed, under-resourced. What do I do?
You know, I'm not sure that I have any advice, because I'm the same overwhelmed, under-resourced parent in my life, spending too many hours at work and not enough hours at home, and trying to juggle all the different pieces of my life, and not having always done it well, and yet we have this primary responsibility to home, not a primary responsibility to work. Not a primary responsibility to the size of our house, not a primary responsibility to the expense of our vacation, but a primary responsibility to home, to family. And I think that begins with actually being there.
Is it recoverable? You see the most damaged of cases. Is it recoverable?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a lot of work. It's a major shift in not just one system. I mean, we're talking about involving many systems here. It's not just child welfare, and every province has their own child welfare system. So it's all of those systems. It is our family court system as well. It will involve the education system as well. I mean, there are many professionals who are going to have to come to the table and say, yes, we agree, it needs to change.
For Rick, it's our broken spiritual systems that could use some mending too.
But I think when faith causes us to look at ourselves and deal with our own baggage, to deal with our own woundedness, to deal with our own hurt, to deal with our own personal failings, and to deal with them as responsible adults, I don't think that that can ever do anything but make life better for our children. I don't think that can ever do anything but make our home life better. It has to make our relationship with our spouse better. It has to make, in essence, all of our relationships better. There's nothing like working on our own health. And I don't know that I know of a better tool to help one work on their health than to journey in faith.
There are ideas that God has for what are the responsibilities parents and caregivers are obligated to give our children. What are they?
The first is to be present, as in actually being there. Our second responsibility is to provide for our family. We think about food, clothing, and shelter, but provision is far more than that. Education, hugs, warmth, a sense of belonging, a sense of being valued. And we have a responsibility to hold our children safe. That doesn't mean wrapping them up in cotton and hiding them from the world, but it does mean journeying with them through their life experiences and helping them to develop the skill sets they need to be safe in the world we live in. And finally, we have a responsibility to what I would call prestige our children, or to give our children prestige.
Rick says we've sacrificed our children on the altar of materialism.
And as gods become even more powerful, they often want human sacrifice. And when gods become exceptionally powerful, they want the sacrifice of children. I believe that in North America, the gods have called for sacrifice. We see it in the suicide rates of children. We see it in the runaway rates of children. We see it in the reaction when children act out and become involved in risk or criminal behavior. It's a testimony to the power of a God that calls forth everything from the parent, including their children. And we sacrifice our children when we put career, when we put privilege, when we put promotion, when we put wealth actually ahead of our children. Then we have actually bowed down to a false god, and that false god will destroy our family if we allow it to.
When Listen Up returns, a British Columbia couple who spent 25 years fostering some 200 children and who another 12 children call mom and dad. That's next.